All right, we are good to go. Once again, thank you so much for being here today. This is Making Time, a show hosted by me, H.V. Socrates, on the Syndicate Network, where we highlight creators and give them the spotlight and let them talk about what they have going on in the space. You know, Web three, Solana, whatever their endeavors might be. But this is episode 30. You are in the 30th episode. We've been doing this for basically a full month at this point. It feels kind of crazy. It feels like we started 2 or 3 days ago. So it's awesome to have you here and get to learn a little bit more about your story. But without further ado, this is a Twitter space, and I have pinned the space to the top, as well as if you guys click the bottom, click the button at the bottom right hand corner, drop a quick comment, like, and retweet on the space. That would be greatly appreciated, so we can get some more people in here to learn more about Thoth and his story. But without further ado, Thoth, what got you into Web three?
Um, well, actually, what got me into Web3 is the fact that I do music and I'm an independent artist, and I was always trying to figure out a way to get into the music biz without getting because if you don't, like, basically you are everyone knows that if you don't have major backing in the music industry, you're fucked basically. they're not they are not they're not your friend. You are a commodity to them, and you're only as good as long as you sell. They don't care about your art for real. And when I heard, it was actually Tory Lanez. He sold out a collection, and like a bunch of people made money on it, but it was the idea that he was getting paid in perpetuity with like the royalties and shit. Like that's what really got me into Web3. The idea that like I could create my art, and I could actually hold and retain the value of my art forever. So like that's what really got me in the Web3. And what got me into Solana in particular was I went over to ETH, and the gas wars kind of scared me. I'm not gonna lie. They kind of I seen what was going on with the gas wars and how things were going on ETH, and I was like, yo. Don't get me wrong. There's some dope ass collections on ETH, because the first NFT I found out about was BayC. That's what brought me into, like, everyone knows about BayC. BayC is what brought me into the idea of NFTs. But what made me take it serious was when Tory Lanez used it as a way to grow his fan base and to make money for his music. That's what like locked it. It was like, yo, this is a real thing. This is something that we could actually use to like take back control as artists.
Yeah, it's actually crazy you mentioned that. I actually had Matt from Lonely Listeners. He was the show right before you, and he was talking about how like there's that barrier in Web three and in Web two music. You know, as an artist who works for a label or something along those lines, it's kind of soul. It kind of depletes your soul. You know, you're commodified. You know, you're only valuable if you output or are able to generate cash flow or so on and so forth. So it's interesting that it's kind of coincidental that I had him right before you. But I'm curious. So you said you were a music artist, right? You were an independent music artist, and you were inspired by Tory Lanez to kind of take the deeper dive into Web three and learn more about the industry. So I'm curious, what made you fall in love with creating music in the first place?
um Music has always been my outlet. Like it's like, to me, music is the universal language. No matter, like, because I listen to music from all different cultures. Music has always been the thing that's been there when like everything else in the world seems to like fall apart. Like I can listen to music and feel whole, if that makes sense. Like it's always been a part of me. It's like I don't even like I really see music as an extension of myself, because like I honestly, I can't go back and think of a time where I didn't have music in my life, and like it wasn't there as just like a straight up linchpin that like making me feel like I can do anything.
Yeah, it's kind of like a superpower. You know, there's some songs that make you feel extremely emotional, maybe, and it makes you reminisce on better times or different experiences in your life. And then there are other songs that make you feel inspired and motivated, and it really does feel like an extension of yourself, right? I relate to what you're saying here. I also do songwriting, you know, on in my free time, you know. And to me, it's just a way to not only channel my artistic ability, but also just to kind of extend my emotion, you know, and create something beautiful, you know, and sometimes fun, and it's stress relieving and so on and so forth. So it's awesome to hear that you're working on music. Is the music I know that got you into this space, but are is the projects you're working on different from the music?
Yes, the projects I'm working on right now, they are different from the music. The music is something that I plan on releasing in time, but I wanted to bring something else to the space because I also understand that right now is not the best time for music NFTs. Like it's still very early for music NFTs, and honestly, music NFTs as a niche hasn't found its proper hold yet in because honestly I feel like it should be a way bigger topic than it is, which is why I want to be one of the people that helps push it forward. But first is that's why the projects I'm doing now are more towards geared towards actually pushing forward web3 as a whole, and then later on I'm gonna smack them with the music.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And this is kind of your opportunity um, to find your footing in this space, and see where your talents can best be applied in Web3 as an industry, in our community at large. And I think that's awesome, taking that more exploratory path and finding, okay, this works for me. This is where I fit most effectively. And then in the future, whenever the Web3 music scene is more developed, you're capable of being like, just absolutely obliterating everybody, and capitalizing on the opportunity and finding a lot of success there. So I think that's awesome that you're kind of increasing your versatility in preparation for something like that. So I'm curious, where do you see yourself in 6 months?
In 6 months, I see myself running Overseers Lab successfully and helping a shit ton of people in the space trade efficiently without getting scammed.
Yeah, and that's something that a lot of people need, whenever a lot of people get scammed by rugs or miseducation and so on and so forth. So I'm curious, what is the mission of Overseer Labs?
Um, the mission of Overseers Labs, first and foremost, is to become some of the leading innovators in the Web3 space. Our current mission and the current way we plan to do that first is through Mendus, which is our over the counter trading bot that is used in Discord. So basically, with Mendus, you don't need a marketplace or or an offsite like Yaw or FFF to trade NFTs, Sol, or SPL tokens. You can do it directly from whatever server you're in, so long as they have Mendus installed on their server.
Yeah, and that sounds fantastic, especially for some of these communities where OTC trading is very prevalent. There's a lot of communities like Jelly Rascals and D Gods and things along those lines where traits are of particular value. It gets you into certain DAOs or they're desirable or so on and so forth. And that's definitely an environment where your bot could thrive, right? So I'm curious, what is your guys' go to market strategy for your bot?
All right. So our go-to-market strategy is what we're actually working on now, and that's to first of all get the bot into servers. We're going to consider these our council servers really, because they're going to be about 10 servers we're doing this with. And we're going to put the bot in their servers after we've implemented our improvements, and let their communities use the bot and let their communities enjoy the bot, and let them talk about it, and let that word of mouth along with our marketing tactics, and let that grow our basically our exposure to the market, and let people, just by letting people use it and see how efficient the tool is, I feel like that'll be enough to get people to be like, yo, what the fuck, why hasn't this always been here?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And word of mouth does, you're kind of just designing the product to let it speak for itself. You put yourself in these 10 communities that allow people to see the potential of something like this. And as you mentioned, say, why hasn't this been a thing? Why is this just now being made? So I'm curious, what was there a particular event that inspired you to go about creating this bot?
Um, yes, it was actually what inspired me to create this bot was it was the last um hyped mint that I was really a part of before the Black Swan, which was Bag Gang. I don't know if you guys remember Bag Gang, but I minted Bag Gang, and in their buy sell trade channel, they were like every community has it, but they were the first ones to actually have like an embed with like this whole rundown of why you shouldn't trade OCT in Discord. And honestly, it bugged me a little bit because like this is where the community is. The community, like, the community isn't on FFF. The community isn't on Magic Eden. The community isn't on Yaw. The community is here in Discord. And yes, there are scammers here, but we're in Web3. We are literally the future. We should have a way to prevent people from being scammed in fucking Discord so that they can trade efficiently and be able to and so that your floor price doesn't get tanked. Because it's easy to tank the floor price when motherfuckers are like, oh, what? Don't can't trade here. I want to get out of this community. Let me just drop it on at Magic Eden for like two minus 2x the goddamn floor price just so I can leave. And like I just felt like that was stupid. Like, yo, we should be able to fix this. So I was like, fuck it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna fucking do it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, right? It's something I actually haven't thought of, which is when it comes to peer-to-peer trading, whether that be on Famous Fox or I mean, Magic Eden is actually a secondary, but similar in these different types of secondary marketplaces, you lose that personal connection and that human connection that really comes from Web3 interactions, which is like
Exactly.
yeah, and as you mentioned, that sense of community from buy sell trade channels, and that's something that's extremely valuable for some of these big collections like Jelly. Like I know that people live in those channels. They trade all day trying to trade up to their Grail or so on and so forth. And whenever you don't have the means to facilitate that safely, you kind of lose out on that a bit, like that potential for community growth. So I'm interested, as you've been going through your Web3 journey, right? And you said you started from ETH and then now you're kind of on Solana. I'm curious, what is the best Web3 community you've been a part of so far?
Man, the best Web3 community that I've been part of so far. Um, Shit, I've been a part of a lot of great ones. I have to say the best in terms of sheer just like fucking riders, I have to say it would be Kets. I just recently joined Kets, and the amount of the amount of love I've received from that community is pretty dope. Another great one that I was a part of. I really love this, even though the project kind of went down. I ride with this community because the community itself was amazing, and that would be Sphinx. Sphinx Underground Society has one of the strongest communities I've ever seen. Um, Unfortunately, the project went down, but I still love everyone that I met. The connections I made in that community, I value like way more than the floor price will ever be. So yeah, that there, those would be some of my top ones.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, right, like more often than not, you hop between a ton of different communities. Like I've been in probably 20 at this point, and you kind of just bounce around, see what works for you and what doesn't. And you mentioned that you came across some of these great communities like Cats and Sphinx Underground Society, right? And if it weren't for that experimentation and hopping in and hopping out and so on and so forth, you wouldn't have discovered the awesome people in the community that exists there. So I'm curious, whenever you look at these projects, right, and you look at these communities that you cherish, what lessons do you take away from that, and how does that help you be a better project owner?
Um, well, it's funny you mentioned that because when I first became a project, or before when I first thought about running a project, I was looking at all the projects that I was in, and I started to hyper focus on the leadership of the project and how they managed community and how they handled different things. And it started to make me like reflect on how I was as a community member and things that I wanted from the community that I wasn't getting. And really one of the biggest lessons I learned is that being transparent with what you do in this space, not just as a project founder, but as just like trying to be as I know like people like their anonymity, and I'm not saying you have to be like, you have to dox yourself, but being honest and being real about what your intentions are in this space are the best way to move forward. And like that's like genuinely like I believe in like being transparent about what you want is honestly the best way to get it in this space because I feel like everyone in this space generally has the same goal of success, both monetarily, but also in the connections they make. So I feel like if you're genuine in what you want and who you are, there's really nothing you can't do so long as your intentions are in the right place and you're actually trying to, follow along with the intentions you have.
Yeah, right. And as you mentioned, honesty, transparency, and more importantly, I think vulnerability often
Yeah.
yields good leadership. Whenever you're in these communities and you're like, hey, man, I fucked up, it's something that yields strength and it breeds strength in your community and in the sense of unity and being able to pursue something greater, a greater vision or just a goal as a community. So I resonate with what you're saying, and it's lessons that I've had to learn through my journey as a project owner. More often than not, there are times where we feel hesitant to be transparent, and we're like, maybe we shouldn't disclose everything, but whenever we do, it's like a weight is released from our shoulders, and we've better educated and enabled our community to be a part of our vision. So I agree with what you're saying totally. So a question I have for you is, as you've been kind of taking notes on what it means to be a good leadership, like have a good, bro, I'm tripping over my own words here. As you've been taking notes on what it means to be a good project owner, I'm curious, what bad habits do you have now that you're working to get rid of?
Um, one bad habit that I have now that I'm working to get rid of is my tendency to feel overwhelmed even when I have already planned things out. So it kind of like perfect example. I'm currently working with the advisors to restructure the Discord, and it's like for it like bro, I feel like I have at least 60 or 70 channels, so it feels like overwhelming as hell, even though I have like the plan and I know that I just if I take it step by step I'll be able to get it done. It just like and because my mind also goes off to the other 17 things that I have to do, but I also have those step by it's great. Like you get what I'm saying? It's like I tend to overwhelm myself by looking at the big picture too much instead of focusing on the individual so that I can just knock things out detail by detail.
Dude, and tell me about it, bro. Like my side gig, my side hustle is Discord security and design. So, bro, I totally get it, dude. Like, you have 80 channels that you have to go through and rearrange and do the permissions for, and it really is overwhelming, But sometimes you just gotta throw yourself in, or break it down into easier steps, and then it becomes just a little bit more approachable. So I totally understand what you're saying here. So absolutely, sometimes you get lost in the macro. You get lost in the bigger vision, and that can make it a little bit hard to want to be engaged, and it kind of brings forth some hesitation. So I'm curious, what is the biggest barrier you're currently facing?
Honestly, the biggest barrier I'm currently facing is time. I feel like I don't have enough time to do everything. Um, other than like it's like I feel like I have like 1,000 things to do in a day because I still have my IRL job. So it's like that takes up it's freaking portion of the day. And then I also have my lady who I love. So that like I have to dedicate time to her. And then I also have this community that I wanna grow and build. And then this project that I'm and like I've like and this is also a business because we are a corporate entity. So like there you like it's like 24 hours. I do like I, people like Grant Cardone. I don't know how the fuck they do it, man. 24 hours does not seem like enough.
Yeah, and I totally resonate with that. Whenever you're a project owner or a project founder in Web3, you have to wear so many hats. Not only do you have to juggle your Web2 or in real life obligations, you also have to tend to a community and schedule meetings and be present on Twitter and be present on Discord and do organization and project management. And it's a whole, it's a ton of work. And it's not something you commonly see as a traditional holder or anything like that. It's something you really get accommodated to as a project founder. And that's why one thing I respect about project founders is their ability to stay persistent, and stay motivated and keep kind of um, working on their project and realizing their vision. So I'm curious, what gets you out of bed in the morning?
um, honestly, it's the same thing that causes me to get overwhelmed, and it's seeing the macro and knowing what I'm building and knowing what I'm doing is not it's not just for me. It's never been about me because if it was just about me, I'd have stayed a collector. It's what I'm doing is definitely gonna help people in Web3. And the more I think about what I'm doing, the more ideas that I formulate around it, like the more bullish I get. It's like, yeah, I'm doing the right thing. It's a lot of work and it sucks sometimes, but the when I explain what I'm doing to someone and they tell me that, yo, this is a dope idea, all that other shit goes out the window, and I'm like, yeah, let's fucking do it. I'm back.
Yeah. It's always inspiring to talk to somebody and relay your ideas or your vision and have them have such awesome reception. Having their support is it feels amazing, and it does it does get you to be like, okay, I'm feeling inspired. I want to work on this more. I want to help these guys. I want to see this through, and that's something I love and I enjoy about this space. So as you've been kind of interacting with these people and telling your vision to everyone that like your friends, your family, your supporters, or whatever, I'm curious, what is the best piece of advice that's been given to you so far?
Um, Honestly, the best piece of advice that has been given to me so far has been to, honestly, the best piece of advice that's been given to me so far has been to freaking breathe, because I tend not to. I tend to I honestly, this probably isn't healthy, but I tend to envision myself as a shark. Little known fact about sharks is that they swim to breathe. If a shark stops swimming, they die. So, and that's how I see myself in business. And it kind of, the mentality of like, you can't stop moving in business, because like, think about it, really great businesses are like great white sharks. They don't stop moving, because if they stop moving, the business is going to die. You lose liquidity, you lose value, your stock goes down. So it's like, I feel like it's a double-edged sword, because I feel like being a shark is the right mentality, but at the same time, it's a mentality that you have to learn how to sustain, because going out the gate is very hard to sustain a shark mentality.
Yeah, right. Like, yes, you do have to keep moving forward, especially in Web3 when things move so quickly. You
Yeah,
have all of this information, prices are changing, Solana FTX explodes, there's
bro.
so much regulation coming up. Huh? Did you say something?
It's like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, dude. It gets pretty bad, but it does take up a lot of your mental real estate. Sometimes, and I can totally understand how breathe can be some of the best advice you can get because reminders of things like that and taking a break and taking a moment to step back and reevaluate yourself is always so critical in a space that moves this quickly. When you have information flying at you at a million miles per hour, this is having that time to yourself can be quintessential not only to your own success but to the success of your team and your greater collection. So as you've been navigating all of this, you're taking in all this information, you're building out your collection and so on and so forth. I'm curious, is this your first time as a project founder in Web3?
Yes, this is my first time as a project founder in Web3, which is why I try to learn from every single thing that I can, because I'm like, as a first time in anything, I try to be as humble as possible, especially in a space like this where the information not only comes at you so quick, but can change from week to week. What worked last week may not work this week, just because the space has decided to evolve that quickly. So I try to be as adaptable and as just like sponge like as I can with all the information.
Yeah, for sure, right? And I totally understand that. So I'm curious, if you don't mind me digging deeper here, I'm curious, what is your biggest insecurity as a new project founder?
My biggest insecurity is honestly the fact that I'm not as experienced as some of the people that I'm surrounded by. Simply because I'm not as experienced as some of the people I'm surrounded by. Like I try to surround myself like, and I've managed to surround myself with some great people in the space who've got way more experience working with this technology than I do. But it also excites me because like I get to learn from such great people in the space. So it's like I'm sort of fighting my own insecurity with the benefits that are coming from it, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and I think one of the big advantages of being surrounded by the, these people who are more experienced than you is it puts you in a situation where you aren't the smartest person in the room. It kind of puts your back against the wall and you have to absorb the information presented to you, and it kind of just absolutely like accelerates your growth. You learn so much so quickly. You're put in an environment where you're always uncomfortable, and there's just so much to learn from that. But as you've been going through this journey and you've been meeting these people who might be a little bit more knowledgeable than you, I'm curious, who is the most interesting person you've talked to so far?
I gotta say, the interesting person I've talked to so far, one of them would have to be my boy Noise. He is one of the coolest people I've talked to so far, by far. He's actually, and he also is the advisor for my project, and also one of like just one of the homies. That's the homie. Um, and he's one of the reasons why I've become so bullish on everything that I'm doing because like he reinforces me with like the fact that I'm so new in this, but like I can still like he told me like I'm still teaching him stuff as he's teaching me, and that makes me feel good because that means that I'm going in the right direction. If people feel that even though I'm so new, like I'm bringing something of value that they can learn from me, that right there, like all right, hell yeah, we're doing the right thing. Um, Another person who I got to talk to him a little bit, but I just love to hear him speak is Solana Chris. That motherfucker, like he'll get you to sell the house, your firstborn, and your puppies for a little bit of soul. God damn it, he's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Noise, I've had him on the show. I think, yeah, you did come up and talk during his show as well. But yeah, awesome guy. I've known him for a long time, and he's super interesting dude, always willing to give feedback and is super supportive. I love Noise and what he's got going on and the people he's helping. And Solana Chris as well. Yeah, it's always awesome to hear what he's got going on. He really does try to sell you. He could be a pretty good snake oil salesman. He's got that figured out. Absolutely. So as you've been talking to these people and you find inspiration from mentors and so on and so forth in the space, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as someone who not only provided value but was just a dope person to be around. I want to be remembered as just like, yo, that dude was dope. He made some cool shit and he was a genuinely cool person to be around. Like he brought value in every way possible. Like because like I don't like my goal isn't to like be like greater than anybody else. I just want to be the greatest that I can be. And I just want to make the greatest shit that I can make possible. And have fun along the way if possible as well.
Yeah, be the best you can be, right? And it's not about being greater than everyone else, it's about being greater than who you were yesterday. Playing the game of comparison never gets anyone anywhere. It's all about what is the best I can do. How can I be a better person and how can I use that to build some pretty cool shit in this space? And I agree with you. One big thing about what we're doing in Syndicate and the projects we're working on is really iterating on ourselves. It's less, of course, we do our competitive analysis and see what other people are up to, but it's more about how can we improve, how can we better equip ourselves, and how can we be better people, kinder people, and so on and so forth. So it really is this kind of perspective that slingshots you to greater heights. You realize more about yourself, you better enable yourself, and you just come out with being the ability to realize your vision and see something greater and make something greater of yourself. But we are coming pretty close to the end of the show. I will say that I will ask you probably two or three more questions before we go ahead and wrap it up. But I do want to say this has been a fantastic discussion. It's been awesome learning more about your journey through Web3 and what it means to be a new project owner in Web3. Because that is a difficult experience. And we talked more about some of these. Oh, just a second. There we go. But some of these kind of perception you have in ways of bringing your product to life, your vision to life. But this is a daily show hosted by me, HV Socrates, on the Syndicate Network. I have pinned tomorrow's show to the top of the space. So if you love these kind of discussions and are interested in learning more about creators in this space, I will be interviewing OX Merkel, who he is designing a product for creators to make short form content. So if you're interested in learning more about what he's got going on, you can go out to the top of the space on the Jumbotron, drop a quick reminder, comment, like, and retweet, and that would be absolutely fantastic. But today's show is for thought. So I do have a couple questions for you before we go ahead and wrap this up. So I'm curious. You've been making this journey. You're taking the dive into Web3, and you're trying to navigate how can I best fit here. How can I solve problems? How can I kind of make this all happen? And I'm curious, why didn't you start any earlier?
Um, the only reason I didn't start earlier was because I'm not the type of person who dives into things too quickly without I have to get the lay of the land first and sort of because I view everything as a chess game. So I don't and in chess one wrong move could get you checkmated. So I try to, get the lay of the board first, see where all my moves are, and then start to execute once I have a formulated plan. That's not to say that I can't think on the fly and be adaptable, but I do like to formulate a plan before diving into things, especially as something as serious as this, because I like watching other project founders and seeing how this space reacts when projects like when projects don't go as planned. I'll say like I knew like okay yeah I want to make sure I do things right because my like not only is like the project on the line but my reputation as a person in this space is on the line and I don't want to do anything to jeopardize either.
Yeah, sometimes you do need a plan. Um, and that's something my co-founder and I can relate with. Don't jump in too early. Do treat things like a chess game. Have a strategy, have a plan, because action without a plan can backfire really quickly. So taking that time and being deliberate about your actions and having strategy is always so important. So I'm curious, what in your opinion, what risks are worth taking?
um any risk that you believe will truly benefit not only you as a person in all right. So any risk that benefits not only the current you but the future you is a risk worth taking. That's the way to put it. Any risk that only benefits you in the short term most likely is going to fuck you over. Any risk that only benefits you in the long term, you're not going to see the true value of it, and it's going to cause you to probably not stick to the goal that you're trying to unless you have extreme discipline. So I try to find a balance, like a risk that can sort of benefit me in the short term as a little reward, but also benefit me in the long term is like something that's actually going to to bring value to my life in the future is a risk worth taking, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Playing the long game with some of these risks and how it can improve the future version of you is always something to consider. Those are oftentimes the risks that are worth taking. So I'm curious, have there ever been risks in your life that you've taken and they failed or didn't work out?
Oh, of course. Um, there have been plenty of times where I took a risk and it definitely backfired. But I feel like those, even though they backfired, they were some of my greatest lessons because I've always been a person like if you take a L and you flip it and you learn from it, you can earn from it. So so I try to look at every L as as another lesson, and I'm constantly learning in the school of life. So one day I'll graduate, hopefully, but I'm still here. I'm still here working on that diploma.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Like these experiences that even if they don't work or they backfire sometimes, they become a lesson. They become a critical part of your identity. They teach you something new and they encourage you to, although there is failure, there's much to learn from that. Absolutely. So Thoth, this has been an awesome discussion. I really did enjoy talking to you, learning more about what it means to you to be a project founder, and be engaged in Web3 and be able to pursue a larger vision in this space and be able to create something great. So I will wrap this up with my last question for you, which would be, if you had to start over in Web3, what would you do differently?
Um, I would have. Well, I started out as a little bit of a DJ, and I would have been a little bit harder on the research when it came to my first few projects in Seoul. But other than that, I really wouldn't change a thing because I've learned a lot. I've met some amazing people along the way, and I've still got friendships from my first few weeks in Seoul. So yeah, I really wouldn't change too much other than doing a little bit more research, which is advice I'd give to anyone.
Absolutely. DYOR, do your own research. Very incredibly important thing in the space. But as you mentioned, there's a lot you wouldn't change. And I agree with that. We are the sum of our circumstances. The mistakes we've made, the successes we've had, without them, we would not be where we are today. We would not be on making time for thought. But this has been an awesome discussion. Do you have any kind of last thoughts before I go ahead and rug the space?
Just I just like to say thank you again for having me here. This has been amazing. I appreciate the time. I appreciate everyone who came to listen to little of me talk. You guys are awesome. And yeah, I will definitely be listening in to tomorrow's space because I want to hear more about that content creation.
Yeah, absolutely, my man. But thank you so much for being here. It's always awesome to hear about more stories from project founders in this space. It's always awesome to have new perspectives because each of these stories can improve our own. There's always something to learn from one another. So, once again, Thaw, thank you for coming to today's show, Making Time. This is a show hosted by me, H.E. Socrates, on the Syndicate Network, where we highlight creators. We tell their stories and we learn more about what they have going on in Web3. But I have pinned tomorrow's space to the top in the Jumbotron. If you are interested in more shows and in learning more about the creators of Web3, please go to the top and drop a quick set a reminder and drop a quick comment, like, and retweet to help us spread the algorithm and learn more about the creators of this space. But once again, thank you guys for being here on Making Time, and I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye bye.